Thanks for staying with us on The Real Story. Connecticut starts the new school year with a new school leader, Dr. Miguel Cardona, chosen by Governor Lamont to be the new state education commissioner.
Yes, he was. Dr. Cardona has thrived in education roles for years. He's from Meriden, where he started out as a teacher in an elementary school, later served as a school principal, was even principal of the year at one point. He was principal for 10 years. Then he moved to the central office as an assistant superintendent.
Now, Connecticut has its fair share of education problems, including the incredibly wide achievement gap between students in cities and in the suburbs. And changing that will be a major focus for him. But there's more that he wants to accomplish, too. Joining us this morning, Connecticut's new education commissioner, Dr. Miguel Cardona. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
So how's it been so far?
Great, exceptional. Been received very well, a lot of support. And at the end of the day, we're all aiming to help kids. So the support's been great, and I look forward to working with all the partners that have welcomed me.
It's interesting. I was reading that your history in Meriden. You went to high school. Was it Wilcox?
I went to Wilcox Tech.
And you were studying auto mechanic work. And how did you turn into education and becoming a teacher?
So while I was in high school, had an interest in auto mechanic, and I had an inspirational teacher who really turned me on to teaching, and I wanted to go to be an art teacher. So auto mechanic to be an art teacher. I ended up gravitating toward elementary, and loved it. Best decision I've ever made.
Was your attraction to auto mechanics the fact that you were fixing things? Because that would be kind of...
Hands-on, I like that.
Yeah.
But quite frankly, my oldest cousin went to Wilcox, and we kind of, like little ducks, we followed. Oh. But it was a great decision. My godson just graduated from there 2 years ago. He went on to become a teacher. He's studying to become a teacher, too. Yeah.
The test scores that came out at the beginning of this past week, what's your takeaway from that?
We need to be mindful of the fact that we're moving in the right direction. So the gains over the last 3 years have been positive in math and in ELA. In particular, the growth for the high-need students have outpaced the average growth for the state. So those are positives. We want to stop to say, yes, we're happy about that. But our work is not done. We only have roughly 50% of our students passing the math benchmark, so at goal or above. In math, in ELA, it's 56% at goal or above. So there's work to be done. While I'm happy we're moving in the right direction, it affirms some of the strategies the State Department of Education and the districts are taking and have taken before I became commissioner. It does say we still have ways to go. You
talked with superintendents at the beginning of the school year, and you kind of laid out some of your hopes that they were going to tackle this year. Yeah. For example, you had said that Connecticut had normalized failure, and you spoke of uncomfortable realities that our state faces. What are you hoping happens this school year from when they were hearing that?
So the superintendent group, a great group, very supportive. They help, they hold the key to a lot of the strategies that are going to be taken. They're a critical partner. And as I said to them then, a lot of times, this district has solved a problem that this district is dealing with. So we're going to need to find ways to learn from one another, because there's no shortage of talent in Connecticut. We just have to open the doors to communication. But the normalization of failure, which is a term that I borrowed from Dr. Pedro Noguera, a national researcher in the field, we've almost, I don't want to say we've become complacent, but the level of urgency that needs to exist when we talk about students from particular zip codes or shades of skin having a achievement rate that's 20 points lower, and that should outrage us every year. So that's something that I want to bring back, that sense of urgency to work together and find new ways to close those achievement gaps that for too long have been what Connecticut is known for many times in education.
I was reading that one of your ideas, you got a two-pronged deal where you want to have the kids, the younger kids in preschool, full day kind of thing, so they can be exposed to school early on in a substantial way, and then working to make opportunities to create opportunities for the parents to get their high school education finished. Or even started in some cases.
It's almost like a two-gen approach, right? The more we can support families, the better for our students, the better for Connecticut's economy. You mentioned earlier about the work with Congressman Courtney about the jobs and
Yeah.
EB expanding. It's our responsibility to make sure that we provide a workforce that's ready for that. But the pre-K piece of it, so that's the adult part of it. How do we get those parents that are looking for employment or looking for workforce skills, how do we give them those skills? How do we open up our schools to provide opportunities for them to get those micro-credentials and be prepared to go out there and work? Early childhood needs are critical. If you don't set a good foundation for a skyscraper, it's not going to get too high, right? So early childhood education is the foundation for these students to be successful learners and contributors to society. So we really should be spending more time talking about early childhood education as well.
Where else do you think, when you're looking at what the state's done so far, do you feel like we're not doing, and how can you change that in your position?
There are several things that we've started, but we need to accelerate the progress. College and career readiness, I say there's tremendous opportunity there to partner with businesses to see what jobs exist and what needs there are now, and how are our high schools evolving to meet those demands. So this is today. You know, there are jobs open now that we need to prepare our students for. We also need to do a better job connecting with our colleges and universities to give students who maybe our first generation college goers an opportunity to think about college for them. So dual enrollment programs in our high schools where students have an opportunity to gain some college credits and feel like, you know, I could do this college thing. And it's more likely that they're going to continue on to college if we provide that earlier on.
In Meriden, you've had a practice of meeting with students regularly, 3, 4, 5 times a year, to just be in contact and hear what they're saying about their experiences.
So this notion of student voice, students have always had voice. Ask a group of teenagers what they think and they're going to tell you. We need to make our schools places where students have a voice, not only to discuss what they're thinking, but also to help shape the direction of the school. Students know what they need to be successful, and we should provide a platform for them to communicate what their interests are. That's how you really engage students in the learning process. When they feel they're a part of it, they're going to give you the best, and they're going to succeed at greater levels.
Excuse me, do you feel like it's a different experience being on the government side of things as opposed to, or, you know, does it move more slowly? I know you've only been here for a couple months, but compared to you actually being in the school system.
There are processes that I'm learning,
but
I do think it's a matter of checks and balances. We want to make sure that it's really important that we, because we're public servants, we have to make sure that we follow the processes to make sure that when we're looking for a position that the funding is there or that we're following legislative policy. But at the end of the day, I'm not here long enough to tell you whether or not it's slower. I know that I have had a lot of support and a lot of people that are, we're all aiming in the same direction to help kids.
This critical thing that we've already spoken about a little bit, workforce development. To, as you mentioned about Congressman Courtney's submarine project and big new submarine, they need people smart enough and educated enough to handle the work that is available. Is business coming in and offering its help to suggest this is what they've got to learn and get a different textbook or any of these kinds of things?
Yes, there's several things in the work to get that to happen. One of the first things that we're going to do at the State Department of Education is make sure that our agency is designed to do that work, right? So we need to make sure that we have the right staff that have that understanding and that can work with business folks to say what their need, to find out what their needs are and see how we can adapt our system to make sure that we're providing that workforce in a way that can land those jobs and help the economy. I feel like if we do that well, education is the best economic driver in the state.
And keep businesses from moving out of the state to go find talented people.
Keep businesses from moving, but keep our students and our graduates in Connecticut too, our talented workforce, because you know, we have a talented workforce. We want to keep them here contributing to our economy and to Connecticut's success.
Let's, when you go back to work after this interview, you're going to, what's your first duty, what do you plan to do? How do you divide up your day?
Sure. So build coalitions to make sure that there's an adaptive shift that we're going to take together, shared goals around what's good for kids. One of those things is to establish a strong instructional core, making sure that the curriculum that we offer kids is high quality, because a rising tide raises all ships. So working with teachers, working with school leaders, district leaders, working with legislators. I met with 2 last week to discuss what strategies we can take to ensure that all kids have access to that. And exciting. Last Friday, I visited a women's suffrage celebration last Thursday, I should say. And it was a wonderful way to celebrate things that are going on in the state from the perspective of an educator. Yeah.
Right.
Exciting times for
Exciting
you
times.
and for
Exciting
education.
times.
You're always welcome back on this program
Thank
if
you.
you want to talk about
Thank you.
anything.
Thank you, Dr.
Appreciate it.
Cardona.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Up next, after a quick break, we are getting a look at how the November election is shaping up in several cities and towns. The voters headed to the polls last week in the primaries. A recap just ahead.